Hello and welcome to a very quick and rapid edition of the Arn and Eddie experience. This was not planned. We were supposed to be tomorrow, but because it's FA Cup fever, we've changed our minds. Joining me is Arn Furious, as always, and we've got
Hello.
a very special guest. Currently enjoying some amount of alcoholic beverage. Obviously, after his team have just beat Chelsea with one of the best goals, I think, of the FA Cup ever, and a VAR decision that I don't think anyone loves VAR enough more than the people of Leicester right now. It's Will Cooling. Will, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yes, I take back all those mean things I said about you, VAR. I never said it was a silly system that takes away the joy of football. VAR is wonderful. All hail VAR. I
Yeah.
think VAR should win
Uh,
Sports Personality of the Year. Personally, that's where my vote's going.
oh goodness
Beautiful.
me. Yeah, it's well. To be fair, VAR would be a very interesting choice because it's having a love and hate affair as well. Like most choices for sports personalty of the year have
Don't
always been.
don't you dare badmouth VAR, Eddie. Love VAR.
Oh, hey, I'm not getting into another feud with you about Scotland and against Will Cooling, so let's just leave that for now, all right?
I do have a Scotland anecdote, but like talking
Okay,
about my family's relationship with football, so that is coming.
that is coming. I'm very
Excited.
excited
I'm
for that.
very excited.
Arn, I have asked Will how he's doing. How are you doing, Arn?
I'm fantastic.
Fantastic.
Absolutely fantastic. I missed the entire first half because I was at work, but then I got
You did
back
you
and I
didn't
bet
miss
you, I sent Eddie a message saying, "Look, have I missed anything?" And you were like, "Nah."
It was like I'd went out to walk the dog and paused. Then I was like, I'll go and start it, and I went after they'd sang "God Save the Queen," and it was so funny to see the majority of both teams who are not from England not do anything other than Vardy and maybe like one other person sing "God Save the Queen," and that was about it. And then the 45 minutes were just. It was really, really drab. I don't think there was anything of an excitement about it. It did pick up
They were waiting
obviously
for
in
me
the
to
second
get
half.
back from work. That's the thing.
They
So
were.
when I got in, things picked up a little bit. It
Well,
was it was an enjoyable game of football. I didn't think it was like a lot of cup finals tend to be two teams just cancelling each other out and nothing much happens. And
Mm.
I had a whole mental thing going after you said the first half was boring. Was that the Premier League's bad and it's not as good as anyone thinks, and we've fallen behind the rest of the world in terms of entertainment value because we just don't entertain anyone anymore. And then Yuri Tillemans popped up and kind of changed my mind a little bit. And I'm always a big sucker for the underdog, especially when the team they're up against has spent a gargantuan amount of money. And we went through this last week. That it's not Man City levels of money, but Roman Abramovich has ploughed tons of cash into Chelsea, and that's how they exist as a top entity. But Leicester, I feel, have done it. I don't know if there's a right and a wrong way to run a football club, but it feels like they've got owners that care about the club. They've got players that they brought in specifically as part of this division that they've got in terms of improving themselves and moving up the table. There's not a single mid-table, low-table Premier League team that doesn't wish they had the Leicester City approach to things.
I would say definitely after the season where obviously the unbelievable season that they had where they went on and won the league, it's kind of like the money that they've obviously gained from that and how they've spent it. Like, they've got rid of the likes of Kante when they've had to in Chilwell, and they've brought in the likes of Fofana and stuff like that, and obviously Tielemans. And they've just continued. They've become a very likable club. I don't think there's, unless you're a Celtic fan because of the Brendan Rodgers thing, they're a very likable club. And yeah, they've done it the right way, and they've just carried on and carried on. So I'm very curious to see what happens next
I mean,
with them.
it is interesting because I remember when I went to university, and you're used to this would be back in 2005, and
Hmm.
you're used to like even in East Midlands, Leicester's a small club when I was growing up because the Forest obviously were huge, with the European Cups and the league title, but then even Derby had won no league titles in recent period. They were a bit more established in the Premier League as well. And so you're used to like Leicester being this like scrappy underdog that people kind of like. And I go to uni, and somebody in my halls was a Warsaw fan, and he absolutely hated Leicester because people forget this, but the like previous owner, but like 3 or something, went bankrupt. We were the last team to go into administration without a points deduction. So we had massively overspent, got relegated, went into administration to wipe all those debts out, screwed a bunch of people over, got away with it, and then they brought in that no, this is not fair. If you go to administration, automatic points deduction, but they couldn't backdate it. So I said we completely got away with it. And even now, like obviously we're not as wealthy as other clubs in the top 4, top 5. But, we do spend I think it's like 103% of our turnover in players' wages. Like we're not.
It's astonishing the state of football that is not that bad.
We're not this. We do have billionaire foreign owners that pumped a lot of money into the club. Because I remember when they took over, and it was really controversial because like you had the late owner who died in a helicopter crash. You had him talking about we want to get into the Premier League. That sounds about right. Be a bit difficult. We want to get into the Champions League. Like, oh, wait a minute, hang on. We want to win titles. It's like you do realize you brought Leicester, right? But so like it's a strange one, isn't it? Because we are an underdog. We are a smaller club than a Chelsea or a Man City. But we're a smaller version of them. We're not actually living on our wits, living off what we earn from gate receipts and advertising revenue and everything else. We're bankrolled by a billionaire as much as anybody else.
And I think the thing with you though, compared to those clubs, is that what's the word I'm looking for? It'd probably be the case of your owner seems to understand what the fans want and actually seems to listen to the fans, whereas if we talk about certain other owners, and obviously branching out into Arn's favorite topic, the European Super League, they don't seem to understand and they don't seem to have quite a communication, whereas it seems like the Leicester chairman and obviously his son, who's now the former chairman who died in the helicopter crash, and the new one seems to obviously have that communication with.
Yeah, I read this book. Visual prop. The Jamie Vardy From Nowhere book. Now, he's a bit of a thicko, but he talks about the communication that he has with Top and how well Top gets on with the players. So I feel like you compare that to like the Glazers, for example. I don't think the Glazers have a relationship with the players. The players are completely beneath them, as are the fans.
If the Glazers had communication with any of their assets, it would probably be Tom Brady of them. It would probably be Tom Brady of the Buccaneers, if we're being completely honest. And that side of it, because as I say, they know that, whereas with Man United, which is just ridiculous. But we move on before we go into a rant about that, because we can do that next week. We're here to talk about Will and Will's love of Leicester. So, Will, tell us, how did your kind of love with football begin? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was quite late to football. Like I remember watching like World Cup '94 and Euros '96. But it really got cemented with the '98 World Cup, and then obviously you go into that '88-99 season, and you've got a great Man U treble winning side, and that's when I was hooked. And actually, the reason that Man U side is the reason why I'm here talking to you guys, because my dad put an accumulator bet on Man U winning the treble.
Okay.
And when they did the treble, he used that money to get Sky. Right. Which is how I resumed being a wrestling fan. I'd been a wrestling fan as a small child, because obviously with Sky Sports came the ability to watch Raw, and I think my first episode was like the Greater Power reveal in early May 1999. And I guess that thing of what just reminded yourself when you like mock younger people who like Bray Wyatt today. It's like I thought that stuff with the Undertaker and Vince and Stone Cold was cool. So we're all idiots when we're younger, and it really just flourished from there. I mean, my family were all Leicester fans. Like my dad when he was young had been a season ticket holder. My aunt and my uncle were big Leicester fans, and they actually worked for Walkers, so they would often get to go to matches through the connections with Walkers. Obviously, Walkers has a long-term association with the club. And so, so like they just became my side. And obviously, like I said, when I was a kid, in primary school in 96, 97, 98, that type of period, Leicester were below Forest because where I grew up is Loughborough. And Loughborough is like equidistance between Nottingham and Leicester almost. Yeah. And so you did have a lot of Forest fans at school. But then obviously you have O'Neill, and like I know one of the questions at the end is your favorite manager of all time. Well, my favorite manager of all time is Martin O'Neill. The guy was God.
I've gone to personally yell abuse at Martin O'Neill on several occasions because he used to manage Wycombe Wanderers, and when Wycombe played in Bromsgrove, I made a point of standing right next to the dugout, so every time he stood up, I could yell at him. Very satisfying.
But the guy was a genius. Like he just a brilliant man motivator. He got so much out of that side, which was pretty ordinary in reality, with a few exceptions. Successive top 10 finishes. I think 3 League Cup finals, of which we won 2. I remember the first, because I haven't been to many live football games. When I was a kid, I used to just work every Saturday for my dad, so it just wasn't something that we did. But we got through my uncle actually. We got 2 tickets to go to the semi-final at Villa Park,
right?
Where I think this would be, I think it was the 99-2000 season, the one where we lost in the final to Tottenham, I think. But like that semi-final against, I think it was semi-final against Villa at Villa Park. And so, yeah, it was just, and I remember my dad saying to me after we won the second League Cup, when I think it was a Worthington Cup then, this is as good as it gets as a Leicester fan. Yeah, it doesn't get any better.
How wrong he was.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better than this. So you might as well make sure you enjoy it. Because again, like, obviously today with the FA Cup, 4 managers have led Leicester to a major trophy in its history. Because
I'm just going to put this up here, so...
Oh, goodness, there we go.
Because there's a guy in the 60s, there's O'Neill, there's Ranieri, and now there's Rodgers. So, like, we are a small, in terms of our history, we're a small club. We hadn't been challenging, we hadn't been doing this or that. And so, those two League Cups, so, we thought that was brilliant. Now, it has to be said at that point, Leicester were atrocious to watch. They were not an easy on the eye side, as O'Neill teams never are. He's a very cautious defensive manager who likes to disrupt games. And I always used to think that if you could bear to watch Leicester on the TV, you knew things were going wrong. Because if Leicester got to implement its strategy, we tended to destroy games. But I just look at that, people like it's weird because people always think of Emil Heskey. But Emil Heskey was a bit useless. I remember reading 442 the season before he went to Liverpool. He literally, the guy, like the fan who did the fan review for Leicester, literally made Heskey their donkey of the season, just gone. And then we get like 10 million for him. But, you had, Tony Cottee was just like this fox in the box, would just get you the odd goal when you needed it. You had Steve Guppy whipping things in from the left. You had Muzzy Izzet and Neil Lennon in the midfield.
Yeah,
and then obviously you had Matt Elliott at the back. And here's the thing, how bad Heskey was. Heskey's a huge guy, but our go-to strategy if we were losing or we needed to turn a draw into a win was to send Matt Elliott up for the last 10 minutes. If Heskey was any good, we wouldn't have to do that. You wouldn't have to turn your defender into like a last gasp target man to try and nick a goal at the end.
Yeah. And you also had Robbie Savage at that point as well.
Yes.
Which would have been an experience to watch
The-
that.
The brilliant thing with Robbie Savage is I think it's only when he went to Derby did he start getting yellow cards. Or no, red cards even. Like there was this weird stat, like you'd think he would have been sent off so many times in his career due to the way he plays. But he just knew the line and he would do everything he could to be on the other side, to be on the right side of the line, but he'd push it. It is like Danielson and like Ring of Honor going, I get 5 ref. It's like it was that type of gamesmanship, knowing the rules, that he would just push it to the absolute limit. And like he's a classic player that you don't want to be, you don't want to have, you love him, but you deep down you know why the other side hates him, but that makes you love him more. So that was a great side, but then obviously what then happened was
Robbie Savage was barely a footballer.
Hey, look, he was a star, as he'll tell you, he was a starter in that Man U youth side, and Beckham wasn't. If you don't believe me, just go and ask him.
Yeah, because they needed somebody to kick the other team and break up play, which is how he got into every team he was ever in. Just chase the ball around. It was like watching a child play. Just runs around after the ball, kicking the other players until he gets a booking, and then he gets taken off. That was the Robbie Savage story.
I was going to say that's probably his party story. Anytime he's at some kind of after dinner night thing, he's like, I could have been in that squad. Beckham wasn't.
But the thing you did have with that, I don't know if you guys remember it, but like O'Neill, when Graham took the Tottenham job, which when Graham took the Tottenham, when Graham took the Tottenham job, Leeds went for O'Neill quite strongly, and that convulsed the Leicestershire for like a few days. I mean, the big fan. Not protest, but like literally like begging him to stay at, I think it was a game against Everton, and like our local paper, the Leicester Mercury, was like printing out these things for fans to wear to show their love and admiration for Martin O'Neill. Like, it was so like it was pathetic in the truest sense of the word, in the sense of we weren't saying how dare you sell us out, how dare you leave us. It was like, Martin, we know you're so much bigger than us. We know we don't deserve you, but please stay for a bit longer.
The whole time he was there, it was like you're kind of waiting and expecting him to move on to a bigger job. It was kind of felt like Martin O'Neill was at some point was going to manage a big club, and it didn't really happen for him.
Do you want to take that, Eddie?
No, listen. I mean, his time. I mean, obviously, he would move to Celtic, and for some people that is a big club, and for some people it isn't a big club. I think what he did at Celtic though was quite revolutionary, because he took that side. He brought over the likes of, I remember he brought Steve Guppy and Neil Lennon over, obviously Lennon more so, and he led them to the UEFA Cup final. He won the treble at Celtic. During that UEFA Cup run, they beat Blackburn and Liverpool. He obviously had the historic results against Barca. I think he was the manager who beat Barcelona. And he had a good spell. Do I think that is one of the biggest jobs in Scotland? Yeah, in the UK, it's one of the big jobs. Again, depending on how you look at it, but
I'm certainly there. Yeah, I would argue it's smaller now relative to some of the English clubs, but I think that top 10 job easy.
At the time, with the money you were getting as well, because obviously the Premier League, the Scottish Premier League, had just kind of come into full effect. We were getting, Rangers were spending well within their means. I'm gonna probably get some stick for that, but I don't care. They, Celtic then had to kind of fight fire with fire. So,
the thing I had, and I didn't take it as far as supporting Forest, but my thing was O'Neill, whichever side that O'Neill was managing was my second side.
Okay.
So literally, now when he went to Celtic, they became my second side. When he went to Villa, and Leicester and Villa fans had some argy-bargy, because obviously when he comes to Leicester, it's because Villa had stolen, quote unquote, Brian Little, which really annoyed a lot of people that he would go. I think there was a thing where he had came out after a game and promised fans he was not going to go to Villa, and then the next day he goes to Villa. But even backed Villa when he was like Villa's manager. Because as I said, like to me, the man is God. Because like it was like I just got into football, Leicester were my local side, and you know, you just were always grateful for what he did. And then of course it all goes to hell after he leaves.
Yeah.
In quite predictable fashion.
I mean, do you remember when he was touted with the Man United job when Fergie was gonna leave in 2002? Because Fergie was packing up at that point. Again, it was one of those again. Terry Funk retire and then didn't retire. And then just kept
I mean,
getting off the contract.
He wouldn't have gone it. They were going to go for Ericsson.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was always a rumor that Eddie was at Man United. I don't think that would have worked. I think O'Neill's too defensive a manager to take a big English club. I think his defensiveness would let him down. Yeah. But he was always connected to Man U. I think Liverpool a few times. But going back to Celtic, I mean, people forget, like, you know, younger people listening to this may think, oh well, you win with Celtic, whoop-de-doo. But like Celtic were a joke when he took over. Like you'd had the one season with the Dutch guy where you won the title.
Wim Jansen,
Jansen, where that stopped Rangers doing 10 in a row. But then, like Rangers started winning again. You had the complete chaos of the John Barnes, Dalglish regime.
Supercalifragilistic Celtic are atrocious. They lost 3-1 to Cali. Yeah, it's that point you were right, because as I say, Rangers were putting the money in, and they were back. You know, with Advocat, with Walter, they brought in these players, and they were phenomenal types.
They were amazing. I started really getting into football properly like that 98-99 period, and I remember you'd look at who Rangers have. Like you get your 4-4-2 preview of the season, and they've got a law drop. They've got Gascoigne. I think they have either then or a bit later on they get someone like Flo.
They get Flo for 12 million. They get Flo for 12 million. They had Kanchelskis. They had.
I love Kanchelskis.
Kanchelskis when he played. They had if you look at the squad for like the years going up to before Celtic decide to sign the likes of Larsson and Moravchik and the likes of that, they've got some of the best players, and you think, how on earth are they? They've also got some right awful players as well. But you know, I say Laudrup. They've got Alberts. They've got, as he says, Gaza. Hately still playing.
Mark Hately. Richard Goff.
Randomly, Sebastian Rosenthal from Chile. They also signed. They also signed Stefan Guvric, who's a World Cup winner for France in '98, and was useless. And obviously, who else but Gattuso, one of my favorite, one of my favorite hard men in football.
So they were. This is the thing. Like they were a glamour club. Rangers were a glamour club in that kind of '90s. Mm-hmm. Less so early noughties, but even into the early noughties, they were a bit of a glamour club. O'Neill did a great job wresting away supremacy from Rangers and really establishing a dynasty that kind of has only just imploded, but it has imploded quite spectacularly.
They need the thing is with Scottish football, it's a whole. I'm glad it's happened finally, because now it just means next season we're probably going to get something that's actually quite exciting again, because Celtic are now on a rebuild. I still don't think they should have stuck with Lennon this season, but I think a lot of Celtic fans probably agree with that. So it's going to be a rebuild.
Why did he become so hated? Because like he was obviously a great player for you guys. He had a decent first run as manager.
I'm a Dundee United fan. I don't support either.
But for Celtic.
It's one of those things where he had a decent first spell as manager, I think, a while ago. Then he moved, and then
he'd manager Aberdeen, right?
He went to Bolton, and then went back up and managed Hibs.
That's
and then when you've got the likes of a Brendan Rodgers, in your manager, and he obviously leaves to go to Leicester, you're expecting someone of that kind of caliber, not a guy who at the time was currently like 9th or 8th in the league. So I think he automatically had his back against the wall with that. And then as it kind of grew, they won the league that year. I think they kind of slowly, they already had a massive lead, so I think they just slowly dredged to it. But I think after that, they kind of realized they were thinking, right, we're going to get someone new. No, Lennon's getting offered the job in the showers after they win one of the cups. And there's not enough spent. The signings he made as well, just I don't think worked well. So, and Rangers, as I say, have been building and building a side.
Yeah.
Gerrard has been kind of putting the pieces slowly and slowly together. So definitely
But,
that's it.
it just shows how things have changed, because I said,
Yeah.
like, Celtic were clearly a bigger club than Leicester, like easily, when O'Neill went. And I know O'Neill, there was connection there as well, because he'd supported Celtic when he was younger. But, the idea that someone would quit Celtic to go and manage Leicester, that would have been a joke, 20 years ago. No, even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And, and it is because you look at that Premier League rights deal that has exploded. And it just means even a relatively small Premier League club like Leicester actually is a big job, actually has a very exciting job. So yes, I think that's really interesting.
So go on. Sorry, what were you going to say? No, Karen.
No, I was going to change the subject.
Well, I was going to change the subject as well. So obviously, Martin goes to Celtic. You guys then have, I think the season after, you have a lot of managers, and then you finally stick on to, is it Mickey Adams or is it?
So with Mickey Adams, we get Peter Taylor in.
Oh, Peter Taylor.
Straight after O'Neill, and this is one of the reasons why most Leicester fans did not take seriously the strong start to the 15-16 title race, because people forget that first Peter Taylor's time begins great, and he does really well, and he's just kind of racing away, and we're like top of the league after like I think 10, 11, 12 games in, and it all goes to hell. We kind of limp along the lines of that season, and in the next season we get relegated, and it's all basically due to the fact of he opens us up a bit more. We start playing a bit more free flow football. We're more vulnerable to being hit on the break and stuff like that. And we get Adi Akambaye, I think was his name, who had been like the top scorer in the Football League, and just wrecks defenses lower down. And it's a type of thing you would do in a Football Manager game. You get him in, and they spend like 5 million on it, and he just couldn't hit a barn door in the Premier League. And so that implodes. Yeah, we come straight back up, because this is the thing, like, we haven't mentioned the dreaded words yet. But before O'Neill, Leicester were known as a yo-yo team, because we would constantly be going up and down all the time. So we come straight back up with Mickey Adams. Okay. And my dad got us relegated. I passionately believe this, because if you remember, so that season we had the incident with players being accused of rape in a brothel.
Oh, right, okay.
So there was this huge scandal of several players having accusations made against them whilst on holiday.
Okay.
And they come back and they race into a 3-0 lead against Watford. And this is when I'm still working for my dad on Saturdays. And it's when my parents had 2 stalls on Loughborough Market. One was their normal meat stand, but then the other was a deli stand that my dad had started briefly. It didn't really work for him, but me and my brother would run the deli stand for my dad with my parents next door. And so my dad comes over to me at half time and said, Leicester's 3-0 up. Not even they can throw this away. Of course they lose 4-3, and then the entire season implodes, and they easily get relegated. And it's all thanks to my dad.
Why would you jinx it like that? Why would you do that?
Goodness
oh my
me.
gosh!
You just don't. So that happens.
I'm just gonna pay tribute to my guest here. I'll see you, Will.
Oh,
I
there we
see
go. There we go. So
There we
while you do that, obviously, so you get relegated again.
This is not a
And
paid advertisement, by the way. This is just I'm drinking some rum.
I'm not actually on the rum. I'm on Maker's Mark.
oh,
I drank my rum last night. So
he drank all his rum, not realizing that he was going to be on here again. But yeah, so obviously you have that kind of cat. You then go into the championship again, and you're in the championship for I think you're in the lower leagues. You're not in the Premier League for quite some time after that, aren't you?
yeah, and I got to be honest. This is where I kind of lose touch because I move away from Leicestershire, go to uni in Nottingham, then I live in Birmingham for a bit, and so I really lose touch with Leicester City. I'm still following football, but I'm kind of tend to drift into watching more of the big games in the Premier League. So you'd be following the scores on like what is it? The Football Focus. When they do all the final score. But I remember when I moved back to Leicester in 2012. So I think this is just around the time we got relegated to League One.
And is that sorry, just quickly, is that when you started to get back properly into football, or?
Well, I'd always been into football because I'd just been less into Leicester because I'd moved away from the area.
Oh, okay.
But when I was talking to somebody, I think it was just after we had got relegated to third tier.
So League One would have been 2008.
Yeah, that sounds right. I was talking to somebody, and they were saying this is the worst it's been. Like just before the new ownership change, so that kind of turn of to 2010s, it got really, really dire. That people thinking of who'd stayed as season ticket holders had just had enough. And so to see them come back like they have has been quite amazing. Like I remember the season they got promoted into the Premier League, I was living in Leicester again, and I remember I didn't live near the ground, but I lived near enough where I could see what is a King Power Stadium now. I always think of it as a Walker Stadium. I could see the ground. You could see the ground from where I used to live. Okay. And when the goal went in that got us like passage into the playoff final, you could hear the eruption. Even from that far away, there was such a passion for it. And obviously, then you have that life and death tussle in a relegation battle the following season. And this is the weird thing with Leicester, because you think that season with Nigel Pearson, we're pretty hopeless for the first half of that season. And then we just enter like God mode. So basically, Leicester's playing out of its skin for a season and a half.
I can't remember who you beat, but like you basically had to beat somebody in order to stand any chance of like survival. And it's like they won that game, and then they were just win, and then once it got to the end of the season, it just kind of carried over. And only lost 3 games in the season, won the league.
But this is the thing, it's like then of course we then fired Nigel Pearson in close season. And that was the weirdest one because he was really popular amongst Leicester City fans because I think he had been a manager to get us out of League One. He'd obviously gotten us out of the Championship. And he pulled off this miraculous great escape. And the reasons he was being let go are the type of things that get fans annoyed at foreign owners. It's like he couldn't kind of cooperate with the ownership. He couldn't take orders properly. But even that seemed to work for them. They really they brought Ranieri in, which was a weird appointment. People were like, Ranieri, really? Like, I think he just finished managing Napoli, and he hadn't done particularly well with them. But it all came together in what is a season I still don't think we understand. Like, I feel happy having won the FA Cup than the league because I can understand winning the FA Cup. Like when you
this year it feels like it makes more sense. Like you've built up to this, like if you look at the last like 4 seasons, you've just been gradually improving in the league, like recovering from that season after you won the league, where you kind of finished in mid-table, and then you've got like a ninth, a fifth, and then this season you're kind of hoping for top 4. You probably should have got top 4 last season if you hadn't just kind of dipped at the end.
Well, yes, but I think even more than that, like when you're growing up, no one ever talked about the idea of Leicester winning the league. It wasn't a dream that you had for your team. Like it was just like, well, of course we won't win the league. Like clubs like no, even when clubs like Leicester won the league, Leicester didn't, and clubs like Leicester don't win the league anymore. And so it was never a dream you had. But like the FA Cup, winning the FA Cup, no, that was a dream. That was exciting. Getting to be in Europe. I remember like when we were first in UEFA Cup, I had to like persuade my dad to like. There's like a dodgy pay-per-view channel that was created for UEFA Cup matches, and like we were playing like Partizan Belgrade, and so I had to persuade my dad to pay the 15 quid so we could watch this awful like 1970s quality video from Serbia as we had our first European game in like 30 years. But no, to like the league stuff is bizarre because we fly because it's very much a season of 2 halves. We are just so free scoring, and it is very much if you score 3, we'll score 4. We had a very leaky defense, and I don't think anybody took it seriously. So this is all just like early leader enthusiasm type thing. And then I always remember I had to go upstairs and watch the football upstairs because the TV was being used by other people. I just remember going upstairs and watching us thump Man City around Christmas time that season.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, we're actually title contenders. Now, what I will always but then you get the draws dry up. People work out how to stop us scoring as much, but somehow Ranieri works out how to stop us conceding so many. So I think he switches to a 3 at the back as well, and so then we just win like a load of games, like 1-0, 2-1. We go. I think we go on a big stretch where we don't concede a goal, and so like it's a very weird title-winning season. You of course have the thing of Arsenal probably should have won the title that season. No one thinks of it because people think of it as us v Tottenham.
Yeah.
Because Tottenham were the last side to be ruled out.
Imagine thinking Tottenham could win a league title. I don't know how we even imagined it was the case.
But you look at it, I think it was around at the end of February, Arsenal had a ton of games in hand on us and
they
Tottenham.
beat you. And they beat you as well.
So if Arsenal had won their games in hand, by the time you got to the end of March, they'd have been way ahead of us and Tottenham. But they didn't. They choked. They Arsenaled it. And so
I've got the season up in front of me here. So like your running is fairly spectacular. There's hardly any goals conceded. It's just it seems like a walk in the park almost.
I remember
it looks very clinical as well. It looks very clinical, and it's the fact that they didn't even like. It was the fact that there was that Tottenham Chelsea game that kind of decided it. That was
before that.
Yeah, Chelsea got a late equaliser. I think that was the that's what gave them the title. That was the Jamie Vardy's having a party.
No, Chelsea won. I'm sure.
Was it a late winner? Was it?
Yeah, I'm sure Chelsea won that 2-1. I may be misremembering, but I'm sure it was a 2-1 victory for Chelsea. Again, another match I was consigned to the bedroom to watch. But before that, I remember I'd gone to see a friend because by this point I was living in Nuneaton. But I'd gone to see a friend on the Saturday, and we were playing Man U on the Sunday. So rather than rush back, I went and watched the Man U game in an African restaurant near where I used to live. And the and for anyone who's gone to Leicester, it's the Narber Road end of Leicester, which is one of the best bits of Leicester. Like people talk about the Golden Mile and stuff like that, but this little Narber Road thing has so many different restaurants and bars of all different types of nationalities. Great little part of Leicester, and so I go there.
So this is the draw at Old Trafford. This
is the draw at Old Trafford. So you go there.
Yeah. I remember watching that I was in a pub as well. I was in a pub bang in the middle of Birmingham, and I watched that game there, and everyone was Leicester.
Yeah, but you went in Leicester. Every bar is packed. They're blaring the sound out into the streets. As you're walking from one bar to another, you can still hear the pre-match hype. And yeah, I'm just sitting here watching this, and the atmosphere is electric. And we get that 1-1 draw. And you think, we've probably got this now. Like, we probably should, we would, it would be disappointing now not to be champions.
Yeah.
And obviously, the city goes crazy. And I always feel guilty with stuff like this because I am aware that I'm not the most passionate or consistent of Leicester City followers. And I know people, both for Leicester City and for other clubs, who are really passionate, who stick with it, through thick and thin. And so you always feel like, am I being a bit of a glory hunter? Blah, blah, blah. And I remember talking to a friend of mine who was one of those people who had been a season ticket holder when they were in League One, the third tier. And he was like, no, it's great. It's great to see so many people come out and support the club. And it's such a platform for us to build on. And like my dad, I forgot to mention this actually about the League Cup wins. So when we first won, I think, which was still the Coca-Cola Cup in the mid-90s, because my dad's a butcher. So my dad made blue sausages to celebrate, and released blue sausages to celebrate Leicester's victory. And he brought them back for the title win. He'd got a deal where he was also wholesaling them to a butcher's in Leicester Market. So yeah, that we were selling.
Like that?
There's a blue sausage.
They looked very similar to that when they were uncooked. So yeah, you had these blue sausages my dad was selling. So no, but it was a great moment. I mean, the one thing I had at the time, I was trying to save my marriage, which did not go too well. So the day of the big party, I at the time was working for the University of Leicester. So the big party, the big celebration was at Victoria Park, and my office was 2-3 minutes walk from Victoria Park. Okay. So you could literally hear whilst you're working Kasabian doing their sound check. But I was like, no, I should be good. I should not stay out all night. I should go home and, try, as part of this being good period. So I just remember walking to the train station whilst every single person was going the other way. To this big party, and I said I know people who went to the party who aren't Leicester fans, including someone called Daniel Jow, who's an Arsenal fan and has been since he was a child, who just said it was amazing because there was such a vibe and a buzz around the whole place.
I can imagine it was such an experience as well. I remember, was it the opening day of the return season where they got Andrea Bocelli to out and sing, or was that just as they raised the?
No, that was the game they won. That was the game where they got the title presented. So I think it's the last home game of the season.
That was just unbelievable. That's just so hilarious how that stuff kind of all came together. And as I say, as you said, it's like
the picture of it is so beautiful.
It's just you finish fourth in the year before.
And we were lucky to do so. That was we had no right to be 14th that season. How bad we've been the first half.
And I see the next year you're 5,000 to 1 or whatever it was. It
was 5,000 to 1. I remember that being
someone
number.
Puts on Ranieri. Just seems like everything just seems to come together with Ranieri. Vardy, Ozazaki, Mahrez.
Morgan.
It's just a squad that just was the captain. It's just the squad just seems to just gel so well to the point that it is like that first. I remember that first game where you beat Sunderland 4-2, and immediately you could maybe tell they're really they're really going out there and they're playing really good football in terms of that. But yeah, and it's just obviously as they've kind of built on now. Obviously, they had the Champions League run. They had the Europa League run as well, which was not as good as the Champions League one, I would say.
Well, that season was a bit of a mess. I mean, obviously we have to fire Ranieri.
We didn't have to.
You just
chose to.
Kind of did have to. It wasn't going well.
Yeah,
you know, it was. He turned into a pumpkin again.
he had his moment. Then you get rid of Ranieri. You have Craig Shakespeare in until the end of the season, and then Claude Poole turns up.
Yeah. This is the thing. Like, I think we are very like. I think we've sorry, just 1 second, Eddie. I just think we are very like Chelsea, and I think this is what Rodgers has been trying to almost like break down now, which is it definitely felt like you would establish quite a strong core, and now the players were running the club to a certain extent, and you had owners that could be quite panicky, like who were good, you know, they had set up good clubs, good structures, but could be a bit panicky about firing managers. And so so like you know you had like by all accounts the stuff with Ranieri going was partially Shakespeare just wanted a job. Like the results were bad, but like
sorry to cut you off, but like the Ranieri, just because we've got the dilly dong thing up, he gave all the players like a little bell, like an engraved bell at the end of the season for the dilly ding dilly dong.
What do you think? Ranieri's a little thing. I mean, the best thing with Ranieri has to be when he came over as Chelsea manager, and Chelsea gets this random person to do the translations who didn't actually speak Italian, and so was just making it up as he went along. That never gets old. But like we
think.
So go on, Eddie.
No, and you just like that stuff, like, and you look at what's happened now with Bielsa not learning the language and just having his translator, and then obviously goes on to do that press conference when people thought, oh, he's caused a press conference, he's going to resign. Then he gets a press conference and basically goes, this is how you beat Lampard's Derby County. Here's like, and you just like, that translator must be like, I've got to say all of that.
Leeds are my favourite side in Premier League at the moment. Like obviously I support Leicester and I want Leicester to win. But the way Leeds play football, that's the right way to play football, and it's so slick and it's so fast. Like I've never liked Guardiola's teams or the modern day Barcelona.
You don't like the tiki taka.
They kill it. They kill the game. But like Leeds, it's just end to end stuff, and it's just wonderful to watch.
He just hires his team in their training and build up must be absolutely dead, because he's a taskmaster, because he wants it played perfectly. And you know, he'll take people off after 17 minutes if he thinks they're just not up for it. And that's what you want. Like I know there was a lot of things about people going, Bielsa ball's a bit rubbish, or why is everyone praising Bielsa ball? And it's like, the man is actually getting, you know, it's a team that obviously there's been a couple of signings obviously from that championship side, but the majority of that core's still there, and they're in 10th position in the league at the moment. You don't really see that with teams that come up from the championship. And as I say, he's going out to like the likes of United and Liverpool, and he's not just going, right, we're just going to shut up shop. He's like, we're going to go after these teams. We're going to give them a run.
Yeah, that's what you want, isn't it?
Entertaining. That's what you need.
Get stuck in, lads.
Exactly. But yeah, what were you going to say? Well,
so as I said, I think we are quite similar to Chelsea. Because Chelsea's a well-run side, except the fact they keep firing a manager. But like everything else about Chelsea's run really well. And I think when obviously they bring in Rodgers, and like Rodgers was perfect for Leicester in many ways, you know, in the sense of, you know, English manager with progressive ideas about how to play the game, looking with a point to prove. Used to kind of getting the most out of his team. No, I gotta be honest. Last season, I thought he'd lost the dressing room because it wasn't like a wobble at the end. It was a full-blown second half of the season. We just weren't at the races. We went into the Christmas period challenging for the title, and then we just were useless for the last month or so but until lockdown hit. We're useless when the season resumed.
Yeah,
and I always remember. I think it may be the season we won a title that happened to West Ham. That West Ham should have it wasn't the season we won a title, but there was a season when West Ham should have finished in the Champions League places, and they just bottled it the last 6 weeks and finished outside them. And actually, that was the more important thing because our signs that Slaven Bilic had lost the dressing room, and lo and behold, the next season he loses. West Ham's a complete shambles, and they have to fire him in November after giving them a load of money. And I was really worried that was going to happen. But whatever he's done in close season, whatever he's done on the training ground, and I think with a few extra signings, massively paid off. They've kept going. We might miss out on Champions League, which would be a bit gutting to do it second year in a row. But if we do, I don't think it's because of a massive collapse. It would just be because Liverpool would have caught us with a strong win at the end. So yeah, you can't really have any complaints. And obviously we have the we have the FA Cup.
Yeah, and speaking of obviously, you've won the FA Cup, which obviously is amazing. As I say, it's another good run. Again, Jamie Vardy now, I think, has the record of winning in every tier of the FA Cup in terms of rounds. That man just
That's sensational, isn't it?
Everything. You've got obviously in the running. You've got the two final games. You've got Chelsea. You've got Chelsea again on the 18th, and then you've got Spurs. You're currently 2 points ahead of Chelsea, 6 points ahead of Liverpool. What do you for this season and next? What do you see happening at Leicester? What do you
So the big two. Well, I mean, obviously we want to get back into the Champions League. And I think, so I think it will be hopefully we would get enough points to justify it. I definitely take 4 points from those two games. No, I think just beating Spurs on the final day will probably be enough. But I think the big question would be once we're in the Champions League, can we handle that? And the league.
You did pretty well last time. Obviously,
we did well
in the league.
Yeah, that's the thing that we did well because we got to the second. No, we got to the quarters, didn't we?
Quarters against Atletico.
Yeah, so we surpassed ourselves. It was very impressive.
Just throwing the table up so we can see what the state of play is. Leicester currently 2 points above Chelsea and 4 ahead of Liverpool, but Liverpool have played one game less.
But so it's one is can we do the Champions League and the Premier League at the same time? The second is, it wouldn't shock you if Vardy quits at the end of the season. He is clearly we might get another season out of him, but he is clearly at the very end, near the very end of his career. It's how do you replace him as a presence, as a talisman? Obviously, they managed to replace Wes Morgan in defence well. But yeah, it will. I think that Vardy, because even when he's not scoring,
Jamie Vardy's 34 years old. How old are you, Will?
I'm 35.
That. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know.
That's how old Vardy is. And he plays he still plays like he did when he first broke in. I know he had a lot of time where he wasn't a professional footballer at the start of his life there. So he probably lost 6 years out of his career and kind of became a professional about 24 around then. But he still plays like he's a kid.
Yeah, but
loads of energy.
Even when he's not scoring, he stretches the game. there is a limit to what your
Yeah, he
opponents
pressures
can
the
do.
defenders, doesn't he? Yeah.
There's a limit to what your opponents can do in terms of pushing their line up when they know Vardy, could just get in behind them. And so I think he will be a big loss, and it'd be interesting to see how they handle that.
It's not only that; he's a mischief as well, because he got a corner in the cup final today, just because he basically hounded Thiago Silva into making a mistake.
Yeah,
and this is 5 minutes from the end of the game. He's still running around annoying the defenders, and you almost can't teach that. It's like something that you just have to have it inside you. You want to go and annoy the opposition players constantly throughout the game, and that's what he does. That's what he brings.
You could clearly tell that Reece James was getting very frustrated, and maybe it was partly because of the VAR decision. But the moment when he pushes, goes out for throw-in and he pushes Vardy over,
Vardy, he was loving that. He knew he'd won.
Yeah, and if you look at who they've got, obviously, so say Vardy goes, you've got Iheanacho, you've got Ayoze Perez. I imagine they will bring someone in. I'm assuming Rodgers will probably try and take, if he can, Edouard from Celtic. I would not be surprised because he's tried before he's clearly obviously got an eye for people obviously who he's seen at Celtic and wanting to bring them over and stuff like that. So, I mean, we'll just need to see what happens. But if you just look at the career he's had,
I don't think his legs are gone. I think you'll probably get another season out of him, maybe 2 at a push. I know he's getting on a bit, but he hasn't got the same age as other players his age because he didn't play professional football until he was in his early to mid 20s. So you get the 10, 12 good years from where he starts. So he could have another couple of seasons at this level.
But you think about it, a guy of his style probably stops playing for a frontline side around about there 30, 31.
Yeah, so and he's still going at 34, and he still looks good.
He's already in his extra period. But I do think you're talking about things, and then obviously the other one actually is Rodgers. How long does he stay? Because I said he wants to manage the biggest club. He wants to be in a position where he can win the European Cup, stuff like that. And so, you've got to think the next time Chelsea changes their manager, he might be in consideration for that. And we know
he has done a hell of a job. He has done a hell of a job in rebuilding his career after he had that failed spell at Liverpool.
Yeah.
I think he really just wants a place where he can hang that massive portrait of himself from that Liverpool documentary.
Can we also talk about? Sorry. Go on, Eddie.
No. I mean, I think because obviously, I think Celtic fans see him as a snake for obviously what he did because he's left them midway through it.
Well, I think the thing is though, but I see why Celtic fans are so mad because I don't think it's how dare he leave us? It's what, you're leaving us for Leicester again? We talk about O'Neill goes to Leicester. He takes a bunch of Leicester's players with him to Celtic. And now it's the reverse because Leicester is a bigger club than Celtic. And if I was a Celtic fan, I'd be like, that is so unfair. We have so many more fans than you. We have a bigger stadium. We have a more storied pedigree.
Yeah, you got more legacy fans.
How dare this go? Literally, when I was a kid, we weren't the third biggest side in England. We were the third biggest side in the East Midlands. The worst region in the country for football.
And I think another thing was, obviously, Brendan had done all the nice small chat that you do with fans. I'm going to be here for 10 in a row. Basically say everything they want to hear and then obviously ditched them at that point. But yeah, it is definite a reverse in terms of that.
Yeah. We've got to talk about Kasper Schmeichel because my God, he had 2 great saves, but the second save was incredible because I thought that was it.
That was Mason Mount, wasn't it? The
I thought he got a hand to it, but there was such power that it got into the bottom corner, and he was immense. He didn't have much to do in that game, but I think there were 3 things he had to do in that game, and he did them all perfectly.
It's quite funny. You're talking obviously about. You talked at the beginning obviously about one of the first things that got you into it was the United treble winning
Yes.
squad with Schmeichel as goalie,
Yes.
and now his son is doing an even better job, and it's just
Oh, hang on, steady on. I know it's quite
well,
as good as his dad.
he's won. Obviously, the only thing he's not won compared to his dad is obviously a Champions League for sure. But he's done quite well enough to be up there. Because if you
Oh,
look at
yeah.
his career,
He's done bits.
he's been to he's obviously been on loan for quite a bit at certain places. He's done his time. I remember he did a spell at Falkirk up here. And I can't remember much of how that went. Then he joined up with Sven at Notts County when that whole Sven Goran Eriksson happened there. And now obviously at Leicester he's found himself, and he's obviously he's doing quite phenomenally. Obviously he'll is he going to stay? I mean I imagine so. I'd imagine he'd want to be there for.
Yeah,
the rest.
One clubber now. Like he's done a decade there. I think that's probably.
Yeah, I think he'll stay. I mean, and I also got to remember, like Leicester's got great pedigree for goalkeepers because we had Banks, we had Chilton, and like he's up there. They didn't get to win a league or an FA Cup with Leicester. He has. So that's elevated company to be in, and of course, my sentimental childhood favourite, Casey Keller. America's
you were going to say Ian Walker there.
Oh no.
So moving a little bit on from Leeds from Leicester. Obviously, international football for yourself. Will, was that something that did you have very much sentimental value towards England, or what was your what's been your international love of football?
So I was really into international football, and that's what got me into football more than Leicester. And I was quite a big England fan. And I remember I hated Ericsson. I fundamentally don't agree with foreign managers in international football. That's not the point of international football. And actually, in a more bigger point, I think it really hurts a lot of like African Asian teams because they get these useless foreign managers in who would be better off trusting somebody from their own country that actually understands and knows.
Didn't Peter Reid coach Thailand?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a prime example.
And this is probably me being reactionary, but Arsene Wenger agrees with me, so I'm not being that reactionary. But I really hated that. I remember watching England v Northern Ireland v England, and cheering on Northern Ireland because I hoped that Northern Ireland beating us would cause him to go, and it didn't. He stayed around. So I was really passionate with England. Me and friends used to go to a pub in Loughborough called the Gallery to watch football. So we watched all of Euro 2004 there. We watched the qualifying for the World Cup 2006, and I at that point I should say this before I get on to actually I'll finish the Gallery. So we went to see England go out on the 2006 World Cup. I can't remember who to now. Who did we go out to in 2006? Oh, Portugal. It's Portugal. And I remember
that was the Rooney red card, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And we go downstairs. We've been upstairs in the pub. It was so packed, and we go downstairs. There is tear gas. There is like riot police. There is a pregnant woman on the floor crying, and there are like several people shouting at the pregnant woman. We're like, what on earth has happened here?
English football supporters, that's what's happened.
We went and found a different pub to watch the football in after that. But I remember, like, Euro 2004, I just remember being outraged because, as I said, like, my friend Dan is a big Arsenal fan. And I was a huge Ashley Cole fan because, one, I'm a huge Girls Aloud fan. He was going out with Cheryl Cole.
Well done for just dropping that in there.
I went to a gig at their final tour. It was amazing.
Thank you all.
I'm also bisexual. There was all the rumors at the time of him having an affair with a black male DJ, and I was like, this guy earns hundreds of thousands of pounds, gets to sleep with Cheryl Cole and like fit DJs, and he's the best left back in the world. This guy is my god. And like, I hate Paul Scholes. I think Paul Scholes is the most overrated footballer around. He can't tackle. He can't
that's
tackle.
true. That is true.
He has no spatial awareness in a match. He just goes wherever he wants. And you'd be watching the year 2000 because this when England were doing a diamond, and you'd have people giving Scholes like 8, 9, and then Ashley Cole 5. When Ashley Cole is doing two men's job, like because Cole keeps going into the middle, Ashley Cole has to police. Yes, Ashley Cole has to police the entire left flank all by himself, and he did it. Ashley Cole was an amazing player until Jose Mourinho told him to never cross the halfway line, and he was still good after that. But that early period, Ashley Cole, where he could be an attacking fullback, was amazing because he was an attacking fullback. He was a good attacking fullback, but unlike a lot of attacking fullbacks, he could also defend. So I was really into England, and then I remember England Germany in the 2010 World Cup was the same day after, because obviously this was in the early morning. Was basically the same day as when Fedor lost to Vadum. And I hated Fedor, so I was in like a really good mood because Fedor had lost, and England goes out to Germany, kind of dodgy because there was a goal disallowed from Lampard that shouldn't have been, and there's a goal Germany scored that they probably shouldn't have been allowed to keep, and I didn't care. I was still happy because Fedor lost, and after that something snapped in me, and I didn't really care as much about England as I had before. Like I'll still get swept up if we go far in tournaments, but that the days of me like watching all their games and being very obsessed about them, yeah, it's gone, and it's all from that. Like I've never had the same intensity to following England since.
And I take you didn't like Capello as manager either, then?
Yeah, because at least Ericsson was a genuine fan of English football. Like he'd wanted to manage in England for ages. Sweden was one of those countries that really looked to English football as their guide. Capello did not care about England. He just wanted the money. It was not a dream for him to be England manager.
To be fair though, Will, he did really care about the money.
But also, it was a bad appointment because the thing with Capello, you look at his career, his club career, and it's obviously like one of the greatest club managers of all time. But he always underperformed in cups. Like obviously, that's not a big deal in Italy in terms of the Italian Cup. But you look at his performance in the Champions League or in the UEFA Cup, he actually didn't have a great knockout record.
I think he'd only ever won one Champions League. I think it was with Milan, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then this is somebody been managing the best clubs all over Europe, and it's because his style, this very attritional style, doesn't work in knockout games, and his very domineering style of management doesn't work when players are stuck with him for 6 weeks with no escape. So, like, it was a bad appointment, even if you put to one side. I just don't think you should have foreign managers in international football.
Didn't he bring your favourite you were talking about just at the beginning? I'm pretty sure he brought Emil Heskey to the World Cup in 2010.
I can't even remember. I think he may. Well, the thing is, like, other players like playing with Heskey because Heskey's quite a good passer of the ball.
Yeah.
So he's good at feed and assists. And he's a battering ram. So he kind of protects you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. As I said, like Owen Heskey at time had their moments. But Heskey should have been nowhere near England for much of his career, sadly. And I like Heskey as a guy. He seems like a very nice guy. I mean, that's part of Heskey's problem. He was too nice a guy. I always felt a bit of an affinity with Heskey because at the time he was struggling to make his name in like Liverpool and England. This was when I was playing rugby for Shepshire under 16s, and I think there was the same thing of people saw me. I was so huge compared to everybody else. They're like, "Oh my god, if we can unlock this guy, he's going to destroy everybody." And you couldn't because I was just a bit too passive. And I think that's the thing with Heskey. You can see why managers wanted him to be in the side. Like I think his debut for England against Argentina, he literally did play really, really well, and he terrorized the Argentines.
So,
But
do you never fancy this this bunch of lads here?
Well, no,
Shepshed Dynamo.
That's the football. I was playing for Shepshire Town Rugby under 16s. But
Good
yeah,
side,
no,
Shepshed Dynamo. Well, they were.
weirdly, there's both Shepshire and Loughborough's football clubs are called Dynamo. It's Shepshire Dynamo and Loughborough Dynamo.
It's a very dynamic part of the country.
Either that, or they've just been watching the Running Man. Either that, or they've just been watching the Running Man quite a lot and just thought we like his name.
Shepshire is where people in Loughborough go to die. It's South Florida.
So, in terms of international football, your kind of international football died after World Cup 2010 and Fedor lost because you didn't really care about international football at that point.
I can never bring it back. The one thing I do maintain is my utter hatred of Brazil.
Okay. Brazil. Okay. Let's hear this.
I just hate Brazil. I think they're such an overrated side. They're like all South American teams. They're cynical. They're cheating. They're just nasty. And like it's fine because like the Argentines know who they are and they embrace it. But the Brazilians come out with all this pious nonsense about a beautiful game and play it like Brazil and aren't we so attacking and wonderful? And it's like, no, you're not. You know, you're just so nasty and cynical, and often your games aren't very interested. And so, like, I remember, like, I was the only one in my family to be cheering on France in the '98 World Cup final. I thought that game was hilarious. I thought the
France.
Yeah. I will support anybody against Brazil. Even Argentina, I will back over Brazil. And likewise, I thought the 7-1 that Germany inflicted on them.
That was very funny.
That was hilarious too. Now, the best game, in terms of pure quality, best game of football I've ever watched is, I think it's the 2006 World Cup, is the France-Brazil quarterfinal. That match is beautiful. It's so tactical. It's so free-flowing. Zidane, it's like Zidane's last great game. He is clearly seeing the game on a different level to everybody else on that pitch. I've always hated Brazil.
Right. Well, but yeah, and no surprise, Arn went on a rant about Neymar on the last episode. I'm sure you'd enjoy. Right, we're going to wrap this up quite quickly, but before we do, obviously, we're going to ask you the same 4 questions that we ask everyone else. We know one of the answers already is Martin O'Neill.
We don't need to do that again.
We don't need to do that. So what we're going to do is, of all time, who is your favorite player, Will? And it doesn't mean Leicester in general.
No. You warned me about this, and now I'm thinking about it, and it's actually really tricky. I have tremendous affection for Dwight York. Because that Man U side in '99, in the 98-99 season, is probably the most likable Man U side ever.
I was cheering them on against Bayern Munich, to be fair, in the final. So
I was pretty much cheering him on for the entire season, and so like I think it was because of him. Like he's the only guy to get Andy Cole to consistently smile. Those two as a front two are a tremendous partnership. I recently watched. I put a screening on actually at the university I work for of a forthcoming documentary about Brian Lara, and his 501 not out for Warwickshire, and so when Brian Lara comes to Warwickshire, Dwight York's playing for Villa, and they're both Trinidadians, And like apparently, like they were basically just scoring all the women in Birmingham whilst going out at nightclubs after matches.
It's a Broad Street duo.
Yeah, and so I think right, and it's weird like he's been like Ranieri managing Leicester, very much like a couple of season wonder for Man U. Like I know he kind of gets phased out quite quickly. But yeah, no, I've always had a lot of affection for Dwight York. So I think in terms of domestic football, that's a name that popped into my head. And also, this is a fun story. So in Trinidad, they have what are called fetes, which are basically concerts/parties, open air concerts parties, and like people host them. So you get like the army will host a fete, or schools will host fetes, or famous people will do. And so a friend of mine, so most of them are in Trinidad, but some happen in Tobago, the sister island of Trinidad. And so a friend of mine went to Dwight York's fete, where he's like the host of the fete, and a drunk Brian Lara bumped into my friend and thought he was the famous West Indian cricketer Chris Gale. Now, coincidentally, well, not coincidentally, because my friend is from Jamaica, his surname is Gale. But yeah, like you literally had like this drunk out of his tree, Brian Lara, tried to explain to my friend that he was one of the greatest cricketers of all time.
Oh goodness me! Oh, we're looking at now.
Yeah, I just clicked on the wrong thing. I do apologise.
Next question. Favorite tournament?
Euro 2000. Easy. I know it's a boring, predictable answer, but that Euro 2000 tournament was amazing. It was such good quality. It was helpful that England got knocked out early, so we didn't have to worry about them. But like the football was fantastic. I think there was a Holland-Czech game that was out of this world. And what was great about it was that this is a point that I somehow had managed to get 2 TVs in my room. So I could watch the football on one TV and play S98 on the other TV. Which and my life has been downhill since that moment. So
that's the ISS 98 where they had Ravanelli and Paulus on the cover, isn't it? I think.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure they may be the 2 cover artists because I had that the PS1, sorry, and it was Ravanelli. And
I did not like the first Pro Evo, so I used to rent games before buying them because I only buy so many games a year. I remember renting the first Pro Evo and not liking it, so I stayed playing S98 for like 5 years. I didn't get a Pro Evo game until Pro Evo 3.
The North American cover had Carlos Valderrama on it, so I think you boys got robbed there.
that would have been good. But I was, because I played it so much, I was unbelievable at S98. I could win any match on the highest difficulty. I did a World League once as Wales and won it. Because the thing with S98 is you play, there we go. You play it as 3-4-3, because the trick of this 98 is if you went to the corner goal, if you went to the byline and crossed it in, you would always score. It was like a bug in the game. Like the defense could not deal with crosses from the byline, and so 3-4-3 just make you the most players to get those crosses in. So yeah, I love that game. I want to re-release it with modern day graphics because it is ugly as sin now, so you can't really play it.
I think it's one of the sides. I don't know if it's Argentina or Brazil. Some of them obviously don't have the licensing for the actual players. But I do remember playing it like almost constantly. It was that and Spyro the Dragon were the first 2 games I ever got for my PS1. Quick final one. Favorite shirt. So favorite football shirt that you own or favorite football shirt of all time?
I don't really have one. I don't really care about shirts. I know. So, like, I think honestly, the only shirt I have had England and Leicester shirts when I was a kid, but I think the one I most wore was actually my Tigers Union shirt, and I don't particularly like the Tigers. I just like that design, and rugby shirts are quite nice to wear. So I
Okay.
think I might have to go for Tigers. What I will give you, just finish off, is a funny anecdote, which is a favourite match to watch live. And this is not live in person, but live in like
Okay.
a
I'll
bar,
take it.
which is me and a friend.
That almost counts.
Well, me and a friend went to watch um, the Champions League final when Liverpool were facing Milan.
Oh,
And obviously, Liverpool get 3-0, go 3-0 down. And this is where I was working nights at Sainsbury's. It's during my gap year. And so I go to my friend and go, well, screw this. I'm going to go to work. And he's like, no, stay. I'll buy you a drink. And he was a student at the time, whereas I was working. So him buying me a drink was unheard of. So I was like, okay, I'll stay. And then so the first goal goes in, and like there was quite a big Liverpool crowd in the bar. And I just go to him and go, what are those idiots celebrating about? They've only just got a consolation. And then another goal goes in. And we're like, what on earth is going on? And then the third goal goes in, and it's absolute pandemonium. Everyone's going crazy. And then obviously Liverpool win on penalties. I foolishly go to work. I'd been on holiday for a bit. I foolishly go into work. In retrospect, I should have just skived and just gone out with everybody, because apparently, like my friend has said, the best nights out of his life, because the Liverpool fans were so happy they were buying everybody drinks. So I go to work. I get home about 7, 8ish after working all night. I go and find my dad in his office and go like, Dad, did you watch the football? And he's like, yeah, I watched most of it. But then before the penalty shootout, your brother came in because he wanted to watch Sex and the City. So I didn't get to see that.
Oh, goodness me.
It's a very unique
Right.
family unit you have. There.
I think I've learnt more about Will than I have in any interaction we've had together in person.
It's
And
been a
I'm
lovely
better
time.
for it. But yeah, that is gonna do us for now. Will, you've got your plug stuff, so we're gonna let you go and plug, but don't go into any anecdotes. Come on now. Plug away.
Just all plugs. So yeah, you can hear me at Pro Wrestling Torch, along with all the great and non-controversial podcasters that we have, including Wade Kaler, Todd Martin, Rich Fan. We highly recommend going VIP and subscribing to Pro Wrestling Torch. I also have my Substack, which is it could be said.substack.com, which will have a new article soon about what's going on with BT Sport. And then I have my politics podcast, which is It Could Be Said, which is on Spotify, where we talk about the latest goings on in politics, and with It Could Be Content, the world of pop media. So yes, and then finally you can find me on Twitter at Will Cawley.
Beautifully.
He might not be tweeting some drunk tweets tonight. We don't know. We'll see how he goes. I say I've been Eddie Sideburns. He's been Arn Furious. We are back next week on Monday as normal timing.
Yes, yeah. This Monday's kind of been a bit of a thing because I actually have to work, so we can't do it at the normal time. But like next week, we're back on the normal schedule. Yeah, it's Monday
And
next week.
We've also, as of May 30th, we will have a guest. We will have the lovely Alan Forel coming on to talk about everything retro football wise. So can't wait
Very
for
excited
that.
about that.
I have to change all my questions. Well, I don't have to change all my questions now, but we're just not going to talk about any favorite football team, lows or higher and lows. But yeah.
Yeah, he basically said, "Don't ask me about anything after 2002." So, so that's what's happening.
So at this point, I'll be taking a back seat. We are now going to show off our very brand new intro video, which Arn is very excited about. Again, if you've not done so, as we always do, like and subscribe on every platform we have, which is on Twitch and YouTube. And we will see you next week. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Cheers for having me, guys. Enjoyed it.
No problem.
All right.